What if some of the heaviest things weighing on you right now are not attacks from the outside, but traps you walked into without ever noticing the door? That is a hard thing to consider. It is easier to imagine that everything draining your peace is coming at you from somewhere else. The marriage that has grown difficult, the workplace where you feel invisible, the friend who suddenly changed, and some of that is real. Some seasons are genuinely hard, and pretending otherwise would be a lie. But there is another kind of struggle that does not announce itself. It does not kick the door down. It slips in quietly, wearing the clothing of something good, something spiritual, something that even looks like faith. And that is exactly why it is so easy to miss. A trap does not work if you can see it. The whole design depends on it looking like something else. A snare is covered with leaves. A hook is buried inside the bait. And some of the most dangerous spiritual traps are not the obvious sins you already know to run from. They are the subtle ones that can wrap themselves around ordinary thoughts, habits, and even good intentions, quietly pulling you further from the God you were trying to reach. Jesus described the thief as one who comes to steal, kill, and destroy. The image itself is revealing, because theft often succeeds through concealment. You do not always recognize what is being taken while it is happening. Something can be slipping away while you are looking the other way, convinced everything is fine. So the question is not whether you're strong enough to fight off an obvious enemy. The question is whether you can recognize the quiet ones, the patterns that have settled into your walk with God so quietly that you started calling them normal. There are 5 of them we are going to look at this morning. 5 traps that can hide inside ordinary thoughts, habits, and even good intentions. And by the end, you may realize that at least one of them has been closer to you than you thought. Stay with this, because self-awareness in the presence of God is not condemnation. It is the beginning of freedom. The light that exposes the snare is the same light that shows you the way out. We are not bringing these things into the light to create shame. We are bringing them before God because what remains unnoticed can keep shaping us. But what we finally recognize, we can finally bring honestly into prayer. The first trap is the most respectable one because it does not look like rebellion. It looks like worship. There was a king who was given a clear instruction. Saul was told to carry out a specific command against the Amalekites, and the word from God through the prophet Samuel left no room for negotiation. But Saul did not obey completely. He kept the best of the livestock and spared the king. And when Samuel confronted him, notice what Saul did not say. He did not say he was tired of listening to God. He did not curse the prophet or storm off. He said the animals were spared to sacrifice to the Lord. He wrapped his disobedience in the language of devotion. That is the trap. It is the ability to disobey God while sounding deeply spiritual about it. To take the thing God actually asked of you, set it aside and replace it with a version of obedience that feels more comfortable. Then present that substitute as if it were faithfulness. Samuel's response cut straight through it. He asked whether the Lord delights in offerings as much as in obedience, and then said that to obey is better than sacrifice. 1 Samuel 15 verse 22 records that exchange, and it exposes something we would rather not admit. Spiritual activity cannot substitute for the obedience God has already made clear. Think about how quietly this one operates. You know, there is a conversation you have been avoiding, forgiveness you know you need to extend, or a habit you know is pulling you in the wrong direction. And instead of dealing with it, you pray about it. You read more, you attend more, you serve more. All of it good, all of it real. But none of it is the thing God actually asked. And slowly, the volume of your spiritual activity becomes the very noise that drowns out the specific instruction you are avoiding. There is something almost clever about how the human heart does this. We do not usually refuse God to his face. That would feel too much like the rebellion we have been taught to fear. So instead, we bargain. We offer him something impressive in the place of the thing he requested, hoping the size of the offering will make him forget the substitution. Saul brought back an entire flock. He did not come home empty. He came home with more than enough to build an altar. But the abundance was not obedience. It was the receipt for a decision he had already made to keep what he wanted. This is why the trap is so hard to see. Everyone around you affirms it. You look committed. You look faithful. No one watching from the outside would ever guess that all of this movement is built around one act of quiet resistance. And often, you cannot see it either, because it does not feel like saying no to God. It feels like saying yes to him in 100 other ways. But partial obedience is its own kind of disobedience, dressed in better clothes. Saul kept everything except the one thing that mattered, and he genuinely seemed to believe he had obeyed. He even told Samuel he had performed the commandment of the Lord. Whether Saul had convinced himself or was trying to convince Samuel, he kept pointing to the sacrifice as evidence that he had been faithful. Notice, too, what this cost him. Saul was not rejected because he abandoned God altogether. He was rejected after receiving a clear command, altering it according to his own judgment, and then defending what he had done. The gap between what God said and what Saul did was not enormous. It was just enough. And that is the sobering thing about this particular snare. It rarely requires a large compromise. It only requires a consistent one, protected by enough religious language that no one, including you, ever calls it what it is. And here is what makes the way out so freeing. The remedy is not to try harder or to add another layer of religious effort on top of the pile. The remedy is almost embarrassingly simple. It is to go back to the one place you skipped and finally do the thing you already knew to do. Not a grander thing, not a more impressive thing, the exact thing. Obedience in the small, specific, unglamorous thing is worth more than a mountain of offerings used to justify avoiding it. You do not have to manufacture more devotion. You only have to stop building around the one thing you have been walking past. So the honest question this morning is not whether you love God. You do, or you would not be here. The question is whether there is a specific place where you have been offering him activity instead of surrender. Somewhere you have been busy for God as a way of avoiding being obedient to God. God is not asking for more sacrifices layered on top of avoidance. He is asking for the one thing underneath all of it. And the beautiful part is that the moment you name it, the whole weight of pretending it away can finally begin to lift. The second trap disguises itself as caring about others when it is really about measuring yourself against them. Consider the scene by the shore after the resurrection. Jesus had just restored Peter, asking him 3 times if he loved him, gently undoing the 3 denials by the fire. Then, Jesus told Peter something about the road ahead, a difficult road that would cost him his life. It was one of the most personal, weighty moments Peter would ever have with his Lord. And what did Peter do with it? He turned, saw John nearby, and asked, "Lord, what about him?" There it is. In the middle of receiving his own calling, his own path, his own word from Jesus, Peter's eyes drifted sideways. Not upward, toward God, sideways toward another man. And the first instinct that surfaced was comparison. What is his assignment going to be? Is his road going to be as hard as mine? Am I getting a heavier burden than he is? Jesus answered him with a line that should stay with all of us. He essentially said, "If I want him to remain until I return, what is that to you? You follow me." John chapter 21 records that quiet correction. It was not harsh, but it was clear. Peter had been given his own path, and the moment he started weighing it against someone else's, he stopped fully walking his own. This is the trap, and it wears a mask of legitimate concern. It rarely announces itself as jealousy. It shows up as a question that sounds thoughtful. Why does their family seem so blessed? Why did their prayer get answered when mine is still waiting? Why does their ministry grow while I labor in obscurity? Why is their season one of harvest while mine feels like winter? Each of those questions can feel spiritual. You can even ask them in prayer with your eyes closed and your hands lifted. But underneath, they are doing the same thing Peter did. They pull your gaze off of God and onto the person next to you. And comparison is a thief with two different weapons depending on where you land. If you decide you are ahead of the other person, it hands you pride, and pride quietly builds a wall between you and the very people God placed you among. If you decide you are behind, it hands you discouragement, and discouragement whispers that your own calling is not worth showing up for. Either way, you lose. The one thing comparison never does is leave you free. There is something else hidden in this trap. When you are constantly measuring your life against someone else's, you are working from incomplete information. You see the harvest in their life, but not the years of hidden sowing. You see the answered prayer, but not the one still unanswered. You see the platform, but not the private cost. Comparison always compares your full, unedited reality against the highlight you are allowed to see of theirs. It is not an honest measurement, it is a rigged one, and you always lose. But the deepest problem with comparison is not that it is inaccurate, it is that it is a quiet form of distrust. When you demand to know why someone else's road looks easier, you are really questioning whether God has been fair with you. You are asking him to justify the way he has written your story. And Jesus does not take the bait. He does not explain John's future to Peter. He does not give Peter a comparison chart to prove the fairness of it all. He simply redirects him. You follow me. That short command is the entire way out of this trap. Not a defense of why your life looks the way it does. Not a promise that you will eventually get what the other person has. Just a redirection of your eyes. Follow me. Your assignment is not diminished by someone else's. Your season is not less loved by God because it looks different from theirs. The moment you stop measuring and start following, the comparison loses its grip because you finally have something better to look at. It is worth noticing when this happened to Peter. It was not during a season of failure. It was right after restoration, right after being handed a calling. That is often exactly when comparison strikes. Not when you have nothing, but the moment God gives you something specific, something with your name on it. Because the instant your assignment becomes real and personal, the cost of it becomes real too. And the mind looks for relief from that cost, and the fastest relief it can find is to check whether someone else got off easier. Peter had just been told following Jesus would cost him everything. That is a heavy word to carry. Glancing at John was not random. It was the heart looking for a way to make the weight feel less unfair. So this morning, be honest about where your eyes have been drifting. Whose life have you been using as the ruler to measure your own? Whose blessing has quietly become the reason you doubt yours? And what would change if you stopped turning sideways and simply lifted your gaze back to the one who called you by name and gave you a road that is yours alone to walk? The third trap is the most seductive because it feels like confidence. It is the slow habit of building your identity on the gift instead of the giver. Samson is the clearest picture of this in all of Scripture. He was set apart before birth, filled with extraordinary strength, a man who could tear a lion apart with his hands and strike down entire armies. The strength was real, and it was undeniably from God. But somewhere along the way, Samson stopped treating it as a trust and started treating it as a possession. It became his power, his reputation, his identity. And the more he leaned on the gift, the less he seemed to remember the one who gave it. Watch how the tragedy unfolds in Judges 16. Delilah wears him down, and finally he tells her the secret of his strength. His hair is cut while he sleeps, and then comes the most haunting line in the whole story. He wakes up and says he will go out as before and shake himself free. But the text adds something devastating. He did not know that the Lord had departed from him. He reached for the strength as if it were still his to summon, and it was gone. He had grown so used to the gift that he no longer noticed whether the giver was even present. That is the trap, and it is terrifying precisely because it works so slowly. No one wakes up one morning and decides to worship their own ability. It happens by degrees. The gift keeps working, the results keep coming, the affirmation keeps flowing, and quietly you stop depending on God for the very thing He gave you. You begin to operate on momentum, on skill, on the memory of an anointing rather than a present connection to its source. And because the gift still seems to be functioning, you never sense the drift until the day you reach for it and something is missing. This does not only happen to people with dramatic gifts like Samson's. It happens to the parent whose patience used to come from prayer and now runs on habit. It happens to the leader whose wisdom once came from seeking God and now coasts on experience. It happens to the believer whose faith used to be alive and personal and has slowly become a set of routines performed correctly. In each case, the outward form continues while the inward dependence quietly disappears. And here is the subtle danger. When your identity is fused to your gift, then anything that threatens the gift feels like it threatens your very survival. You become defensive. You cannot bear correction. You cannot handle a season where the gift is quiet because your whole sense of self is riding on it, staying visible and celebrated. A gift was never designed to carry the weight of your identity. It will crack under that load every single time because it was made to point to God, not to replace Him. There is a detail in Samson's life that makes this even sharper. His strength never seemed to depend on his character. He could break the vows he had been given, chase after every appetite, treat holy things carelessly, and still the power would come when he called for it. That is a dangerous combination. When the gift keeps operating, no matter how you live, it becomes very easy to mistake the continued flow of the gift for the approval of God. Samson had years of evidence that he could compromise and still perform. So the day the power finally failed, it did not feel like a warning. It felt like a betrayal because he had confused the gift still working with God still walking beside him. The two are not the same, and that gap is exactly where this trap does its quietest damage. But notice the mercy tucked into the end of Samson's story. It does not conclude at the moment of failure. In prison, blind and humiliated, his hair begins to grow back, and he prays one last time. He finally cries out to God directly, no longer trusting in his own strength, but appealing to the Lord Himself. And God answers. The strength returns, not because Samson had earned it back, but because he finally reached for the giver instead of the gift. That is the way out of this trap, and it is available this morning. You do not have to wait until everything collapses to reconnect what should never have been separated. You can bring the gift back to the giver right now. You can hold whatever you are good at, whatever people praise you for, whatever has quietly become your source of confidence, and lay it back in the hands of the one who gave it. not to lose it, but to hold it rightly. A gift surrendered back to God does not diminish. It comes alive because it is finally connected again to its source. So ask yourself honestly this morning, is there something in your life that started as a gift from God and has slowly become the foundation of who you think you are? Your talent, your role, your competence, your reputation. And could it be that God is calling you not to abandon it, but to remember where it came from before the day arrives when you reach for it and cannot find what you assumed would always be there? The fourth trap almost cost a man his healing, and it disguises itself as sincerity. It is the habit of waiting for the experience to feel right before you are willing to obey. Naaman was a commander of great armies, a powerful man, but he carried leprosy in his body. Word reached him that a prophet in Israel could heal him, so he traveled with horses and chariots and gifts, and he arrived at the door of Elisha expecting a moment worthy of his rank. But Elisha did not even come out to meet him. He sent a messenger with a simple instruction: "Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh will be restored." And Naaman was furious. 2 Kings chapter 5 tells us he turned away in a rage. Listen to what he said, because it exposes the trap perfectly. He said, "I thought he would surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord and wave his hand over the place and heal the leprosy." He had scripted the whole thing in his mind. There was supposed to be a dramatic gesture, a spiritual atmosphere, a moment that felt significant enough to match the size of his problem. And when the actual instruction was plain and unimpressive, he almost walked away from the very thing that would have healed him. That is the trap. It is the quiet demand that obedience come wrapped in the right feeling before we are willing to do it. We know what God has asked. The instruction is not unclear, but it seems too ordinary, too simple, too undramatic. And so, we wait. We wait for goosebumps. We wait for the moment to feel holy. We wait until obeying carries the emotional weight we think it deserves. And in the waiting, we miss the very thing God was offering through the plain instruction. Notice what almost stopped Naaman. It was not disbelief in God's power. He had traveled all that way precisely because he believed healing was possible. What nearly cost him everything was his expectation about how the healing should feel. He had a mental picture of the experience, and the picture mattered more to him than the outcome. He wanted the drama more than he wanted to be clean. And how often do we do the same, holding out for the version of obedience that will feel the most meaningful, while the simple act God actually requires sits there, ignored? There is something else worth seeing. The instruction was deliberately humbling. The Jordan was not an impressive river. Naaman even argued that the rivers back home were better. To wash in it 7 times was to lay down his pride, his rank, his sense of how things ought to go for a man like him. And that is often the whole point of the plain instruction. God is not withholding the fireworks to disappoint you. He is stripping away everything you were leaning on except simple trust. If the healing had come through an elaborate ritual, Naaman could have credited the ritual. By making it plain, God made sure only obedience and trust remained. Thankfully, Naaman had servants brave enough to reason with him. They asked him a piercing question: if the prophet had asked you to do some great thing, would you not have done it? How much more then when he simply says, "Wash and be clean"? In other words, your reluctance is not about faith. It is about pride wearing the costume of sincerity. And to his credit, Naaman listened. He went down and dipped himself 7 times, and his flesh was restored like that of a young child. It is worth noticing how close Naaman came to leaving. He had every reason to obey, and almost none to refuse. and still his emotions nearly carried him back home with the disease he came to lose. That is the strange power of this trap. It rarely fights the truth directly. It does not say the instruction is wrong. It just says the instruction is beneath the moment, too small, too plain, not enough like what you imagined. And that single objection, if you let it stand, is enough to keep you sick within reach of the water. The most dangerous distance in the story was not the miles Naaman traveled. It was the few steps between where he stood in his anger and the river he refused to enter. So here's the honest question for this morning. Is there something simple God has already made clear to you? Something you have been waiting to feel more spiritual about before you actually do it? Maybe it is a small act of reconciliation, a boundary you know you need to set, a habit you know you need to start, a word you know you need to say. And you have been standing at the edge of the Jordan, arms crossed, waiting for the moment to feel bigger than it does. The invitation this morning is to stop waiting for the feeling and simply step in. Obedience does not require the perfect emotional atmosphere. It only requires trust. And very often, the feeling you were waiting for arrives only on the other side of the obedience you were postponing. Naaman did not feel healed first and then obey. He obeyed first and the healing followed. The fifth trap is perhaps the loneliest, because you can fall into it while doing everything right. It is the slow buildup of resentment toward God while you continue faithfully serving Him. We usually tell the story of the prodigal son and stop at the celebration. The younger son took his inheritance, wasted it in a distant country, hit rock bottom, and came home to a father who ran to meet him. It is a beautiful picture of grace. But Jesus did not end the parable there, and the part He added is the part almost nobody talks about. Because there was another son, the older brother, the one who never left. While the party was happening, the older son was out in the field, doing what he always did, working, serving, being responsible. And when he came near the house and heard the music, he asked what was going on. When he learned that his younger brother was home and his father had thrown a feast, he refused to go in. Luke chapter 15 tells us the father came out and pleaded with him, and out came years of buried resentment. He said, "All these years I have served you and never disobeyed your command, yet you never gave me even a young goat to celebrate with my friends." There it is. All these years I have served you. Listen to the language. Not, all these years I have loved you as my father. Not, all these years I have enjoyed being your son. But I have served you. He had been in the Father's house the entire time, and somewhere along the way, his sonship had curdled into employment. He was doing all the right things while quietly keeping a ledger, and the ledger had grown heavy with the feeling that his faithfulness had gone unnoticed and unrewarded. That is the trap, and it is terrifying because from the outside it looks identical to genuine devotion. The older brother did everything correctly. He did not run off. He did not waste anything. He stayed, worked, and obeyed. But underneath the obedience, a resentment had been quietly growing. A sense that God owed him something for all his faithfulness and had not paid up. And the moment grace was shown to someone he considered less deserving, the resentment finally surfaced and revealed what had been there all along. You can serve God for years and slowly begin to relate to Him as an employer rather than a father. You keep the rules, you show up, you carry the responsibilities, but somewhere the joy leaked out, and what remains is duty performed with a low, simmering complaint underneath. Why have I done all this and received so little? Why do others who have walked with God far less faithfully seem to receive so much? Why does my obedience feel like it goes unrewarded? These are the thoughts of a servant who has forgotten he is a son. And they are especially dangerous because they can coexist with real faithfulness for a very long time. The work still gets done. The commitments are still kept. Nothing on the surface looks wrong. But the heart has quietly shifted from love to leverage, waiting for the day the account finally gets settled in its favor. And notice the tragedy of the older brother's position. He was standing outside the party, refusing to enter, while the father gently reminded him of something staggering. "Son, you are always with me, and everything I've is yours." He already had full access to everything. He was not a hired hand waiting for wages. He was an heir living in the house of abundance. But his resentment had blinded him to what was already his. He was starving at the edge of a feast that had always belonged to him, too proud and too wounded to walk through the door. This is what resentment does. It convinces you that God has been withholding from you, when in reality, you have been standing in the middle of His generosity the whole time, refusing to enjoy it because you were too busy keeping score. The older brother could have celebrated any day he wanted. The father never denied him a thing. The distance between him and joy was not created by the father. It came from a heart that had turned relationship into transaction. The way out of this trap begins with an honest confession that you have been serving with a hidden invoice in your hand. That somewhere the relationship became about what you were owed rather than who you belong to. And then it means hearing the Father's words spoken over you. "You are always with me. Everything I have is yours." Not as payment for your service, but as the birthright of a child who never needed to earn a place that was always freely given. So search your own heart this morning. Is there a quiet resentment you've been carrying while faithfully doing all the right things? A sense that God has not held up His end after everything you have given? And could it be that the invitation this morning is not to serve harder, but to lay down the ledger, walk through the door, and remember that you were never a hired servant in His house. You were always a beloved child. And the feast was always meant for you too. Look back for a moment at the 5 traps and notice what every one of them shares. Saul offered activity instead of obedience. Peter measured his road against another man's. Samson leaned on the gift and forgot the giver. Naaman waited for the feeling before he would obey. The older brother served while quietly keeping score. 5 different faces, but underneath them all is the same root. Each one is a subtle way of drifting from relationship with God, while the outward appearance of faith stays perfectly intact. That is the thread. None of these traps look like walking away from God. Every one of them can happen while you're still praying, still serving, still showing up, which is exactly why they are so easy to miss and so important to name. The danger was never that you would stop believing. The danger is that you could keep all the motions of faith while the living connection underneath quietly thins out. And here is the mercy in seeing all 5 together. Not one of them is a dead end. Saul could have simply obeyed. Peter could have kept following. Samson reached back for the giver, and the strength returned. Naaman stepped into the water and came up clean. The older brother was standing one step away from a feast that was already his. In every case, the way out was never complicated. It was a turn, a small, honest turn back toward the God who never actually moved. It helps to see why that turn is always so small. These traps did not open a great distance between the person and God. They opened a hairline crack, and then the person kept living as if the crack were not there. Saul was not miles from obedience. He was one decision from it. The older brother was not far from the feast. He was just outside the door. That is the strange grace hidden in all of this. Because the drift was quiet and gradual, the return is usually quiet and immediate. You do not have to travel a long road back. You have to stop, turn your face in the right direction, and let God close the small gap you allowed to open. The trap took months to form. The turning back can happen in a single honest moment of prayer. There is one more thing these 5 have in common, and it is the most important of all. In every single case, the person could not see the trap from the inside. Saul was sure he had obeyed. Peter did not think he was comparing. He thought he was asking a fair question. Samson assumed the strength would be there because it always had been. Naaman felt insulted, not proud. The older brother believed he was the responsible one, the good son, the one in the right. Not one of them experienced their trap as a trap. Every one of them experienced it as something reasonable, even righteous. That is the whole nature of a snare. It does not feel like danger while you're standing in it. It feels like normal life. This is why the light matters so much. You cannot repent of something you cannot see, and you cannot see it by trying harder to look. It takes God gently turning your face toward the one place you have been avoiding. That is not an act of accusation. It is an act of love. A father who lets his child keep walking toward the edge without a word does not love that child. The warning, the exposure, the quiet conviction you may be feeling right now, all of it is evidence that God has not given up on your freedom. He would not be showing you the trap if he were not also planning to walk you out of it. And that is worth holding on to if this morning has stirred something uncomfortable. Discomfort in the presence of God is not the same as condemnation. Condemnation says you are the problem and there is no hope. Conviction says there is a specific thing here and it can be dealt with, and you are still fully loved on the other side of dealing with it. What you have possibly felt this morning is not God pushing you away. It is God drawing you close enough to show you something he wants to heal. So before we pray, let me ask you to do something simple. And I only ask because this is the kind of message that helps someone else the moment it reaches them. If even one of these 5 traps put its finger on something real in your life this morning, take a second and comment below with the number. Just the number. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Naming it out loud, even in a comment, has a way of breaking its hold, and it also tells me which of these hit home so I know what you need more of. And if this spoke to you, share it with someone you know is faithfully serving God but quietly carrying one of these weights. You might be handing them the exact thing they needed to see. Then stay with me, because we are not going to end on the diagnosis. We are going to end where healing always begins, in the presence of the Father, bringing every one of these traps into the light and letting him do what only he can do. The recognizing was step 1. The prayer is where the freedom actually starts. So let us bring all of it to him now. Wherever you are, however this morning has found you, let this become a prayer you are not just hearing, but praying. Father, we come to you honestly this morning, because you already see what we have spent so long not seeing. You know the traps we walked into without noticing the door. And instead of hiding from that, we are choosing to bring it into your light, as we trust that your light was never meant to shame us, but to set us free. We confess that it is easier to pray about everything except the one thing you have put your finger on. So we are not going to do that today. We are not going to pray around the edges of what you are showing us. We are bringing the center of it to you, the exact place we have been protecting, the very thing we hoped you would not notice. You noticed. And you loved us enough to bring it up gently instead of letting it grow in the dark. So here it is, Lord, laid open in front of you, held out in hands that are finally willing to let go. Lord, where we have offered you activity in the place of obedience, forgive us. Where we have been busy for you as a way of avoiding the one thing you actually asked, we lay that down now. We do not want to build another altar around our avoidance. We want to simply obey. Show us the specific thing and give us the courage to finally do it. Where our eyes have drifted sideways, measuring our lives against everyone around us, we turn our gaze back to you. Forgive us for the comparison we dressed up as concern, and for the quiet distrust underneath it. Help us to believe that the road you have written for us is good, even when it looks nothing like anyone else's. Teach us to follow you and to stop turning to look at what you are doing in someone else's story. Where we have leaned on the gift and forgotten the giver, draw us back. For every place we have run on our own strength, our own skill, our own momentum, while quietly drifting from you, we return this morning. We do not want a gift that outlives our intimacy with you. Reconnect what we allowed to come apart and let everything you have placed in our hands point back to your hands. Keep us close enough to hear you so that we never again mistake the gift still working for you, still walking beside us. Where we have been waiting for a feeling before we would obey, standing at the edge of the water with our arms crossed, we choose to step in. We stop demanding that obedience feel dramatic before we are willing to do the simple thing. We trust you in the plain instruction, and we believe that as we obey, you will meet us in the water. And Father, where resentment has quietly grown in hearts that never stopped serving you, we lay down the ledger. Forgive us for relating to you as an employer when you have only ever been a father. Thank you that we are always with you and that everything you have is already ours. Let us stop starving at the edge of a feast that has always been meant for us, and let us finally walk through the door and sit down at your table. We receive your mercy this morning. We receive your grace, which is sufficient for every one of these places, and we thank you that your love never fails, even when our faithfulness has been mixed with things we did not know were there. You are not finished with us. You are drawing us closer, and we say yes to the freedom you are offering. And Lord, we ask that this would not be a moment that fades by the time we reach the end of the day. Guard what you have shown us this morning. Let the light stay on in the places you just exposed, so that the trap we finally saw does not quietly close over us again the moment we get busy. Give us the grace to take the small, honest step of obedience while our hearts are still soft, before the noise of the day talks us out of it. You have shown us the door. Walk us through it, and do not let us wander back. Now may the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you, and may he walk with you out of every hidden snare and into the open, spacious freedom of a life fully surrendered to him. May you carry his peace into this day, and may you live not as a servant earning a place, but as a beloved child who already has one. In Jesus' name, amen. Before you go, If this ministered to you this morning, take a moment to like this video so it can reach someone else who needs it, and subscribe with the bell turned on so we can keep gathering here morning after morning to seek God together. And remember the comment I asked for earlier. Leave the number of the trap that spoke to you. And if you have a prayer request, share it below so we can stand with you. We are believing God with you for a day and a life marked by His presence.